They've stood at the front lines of law, leadership, and public service. Attorney Katrin Jimeno, sharp, steady, a lawyer, an educator, turns complex issues into clear insight. Attorney Mike Toledo, seasoned, fearless, a strategist and communicator whose voice has shaped public understanding of law and governance. Together, they make the law accessible, connecting principles with real-life questions, confronting the issues that define our nation. This is Abogado.
Good evening. Welcome to Abogado, where we put the law under the spotlight, one question at a time. I'm Attorney Mike Toledo.
And I'm Attorney Katrin Jimeno. Tonight, we take on an issue that tests how far transparency should go and where privacy should begin. Let's take a look at this question that strikes at the heart of public trust.
The statement of assets, liabilities, and net worth, or SALN, is a cornerstone of government transparency. It allows the public to monitor a public official's wealth and detect possible signs of corruption, unexplained riches, or abuse of power. Filing a SALN is mandatory for all public officials, but access has long been restricted. The new ombudsman has now eased these limits, restoring public access to SALNs under his office's custody, subject to certain conditions. In the House of Representatives, recent actions also signal a renewed commitment to transparency. Some argue that these still fall short of full transparency. They believe public officials should proactively publish their SALNs for accountability. Others caution that open publication could expose officials to harassment, political attacks, or security risks. So we ask, should elected officials be required to publish their SALNs proactively, not just upon request?
Joining us tonight is Attorney Katrin Jessica Distor-Guinigundo, whose expertise spans litigation, family and labor law, and also technology and data protection.
Attorney Kat is a junior partner at Calleja Law, a former public prosecutor, and a member of the faculty of the Philippine Law School. She's also part of the Ethics Committee of the Philippine Football Federation. Good evening, Attorney Kat. Welcome to Abogado. Now, let's start the ball rolling here. A very interesting topic that we have tonight. So from a constitutional standpoint, why did the framers of the 1987 Constitution make the filing and the disclosure of SALNs a duty and not just a policy option?
Okay, before I answer that question, allow me to greet you first. A very pleasant evening, Attorney Mike and Attorney Karen, and also to the viewers. Thank you for having me. Okay, to answer that question, we should start off with the concept of public service is a public trust. Okay, so one of the core principles of a democratic government is that power emanates from the people, and that such power is only vested to the government officials by the people. And so in Article 11 of Section 1 of the 1987 Constitution, public officials and employees are mandated to observe at all times accountability. And they are mandated to serve the people with justice, with responsibility, integrity, and loyalty. And of course, patriotism should also be observed. Okay, as such, public officials are, well, it has been held many times that public officials should act like Caesar's wife.
Beyond suspicion.
Beyond suspicion. They shouldn't only be pure, but they should be beyond above reproach and beyond suspicion. Walang kaduda-duda. Di ba? So, and I think the mandate to disclose SALNs is a tool to enforce that.
Well, when you say na dapat nga, walang kaduda-duda, that assumes that you're allowing the public to really see through your lifestyle. So the law right now provides that SALNs are available upon request. In your opinion, in your legal view, is this meant to safeguard privacy, or has it become a loophole that weakens transparency in our country?
Okay. Well, the term upon request, to me, doesn't necessarily mean that the right of the people to have access to certain information has already been transgressed. Because it just says upon request. So meaning you can ask, but to me the loophole that weakens transparency is when we put unreasonable limitations to that right. For instance, when you check the website of the Office of the Ombudsman, there are only two people who can request for SALN. First one is the affiant himself or herself or his or her authorized representative, and the other one is any person who has a notarized document or authority to request that.
But when you say affiant himself, then that's the same as the second type of person. You have a notarized document.
Yes, the affiant himself is the person who executed the SALN, correct? So
Okay,
that defeats the purpose of
Yeah, we're assuming he already has a copy.
Correct.
So, yeah,
Correct.
it's so strange. Yeah.
Yeah. So to me, that is one of the unnecessary restrictions to that right. But of course, we welcome the new development with the Ombudsman, right? Because Ombudsman Remulla has issued a memorandum circular that allows the public to have access to the SALN.
And hindi na raw kailangan na may affidavit, right?
Right.
So, kasi it's very limiting, right? Like
That's
you're
true.
gonna have to find a notary public
Yes,
and spend
yes.
money just
Yes.
to get a request granted, right?
Yes.
That's why I wanted, before I go to the next question, I wanted to follow up with what my partner asked. But you did answer it already by saying that the new ombudsman, Ombudsman Boying Remulla, did come up with new rules, which makes it easier, but still following certain procedural safeguards. No? So now, Attorney Kat, some of the senators, no, I think Tito Soto is one of them, partner, di ba, have all begun voluntarily releasing their SALNs, while others, up to now, have chosen not to do so. So should disclosure, in your opinion, in your view, depend on personal choice, or should it be uniform? It's a rule for all. Everybody should just disclose it. In fact, in one of our episodes, partner, I recall we suggested that as long as you're a public official, you must immediately disclose. In fact, publish it, put it online for the public and for all to see.
Yeah, and if they do make it mandatory, pwede nang i-upload na lang sa website, right?
yes.
Oo.
Yes. Oh, well, to me, it's not really about the voluntary publication of one SALN, but it's making the SALN accessible to the public. Yeah, because I may opt not to publish it, but when
There's a request.
then I will provide it, or the custodian will provide it.
But what stops you from saying na okay na i-publish na lang? Anyway, if
Yes.
you request a SALN, the assumption is that it will be granted, especially with the new circular issued by Ombudsman Remulla. So, are there any legal issues that you see if we require publication of all SALNs of public officials?
Yeah. Oh, because we also have to protect the information of the person executing the SALN. Right? Because not all information there, to me, should be easily available for public consumption. Because the right of, to me, the right of the public to have access to information and the right of the affiant to privacy, they are really not mutually exclusive. They can actually go hand in hand. Diba? But there should be, but those rights are also not absolute. So there should be reasonable regulations, restrictions.
Okay, what restrictions are acceptable to you? Because we were discussing
Yes.
earlier
Yes.
that yung ngayon, they're imposing unreasonable restrictions up until the recent circular of Ombudsman Boying Remulla. But for you, before having a sworn affidavit and then providing that as a request is unreasonable, an unreasonable restriction. What restrictions are reasonable?
For example, if we want to publish the SALNs, one restriction could be to redact some information, like what they're doing now, right? But for example, if there is a case order, a court order, or there is a valid request, then those information, so the entire document should be given. Because at this time and age where everything is available to the public through the internet, mahirap din eh, di ba? Because those information can be used for
What do you say, harassment?
Yeah, harassment,
or
ibang
even
Could be
crime?
weaponized, no?
Yes.
Especially during the political season.
Correct.
So actually, partner, di ba? What we see here really is trying to balance between the right guaranteed under the Constitution for the public to know about a public official who was recently appointed, for example, or elected, because public office is a public trust, who have to know what his statement of assets and liabilities and net worth is. No? At the same time, you have there, also guaranteed by the Constitution, your right to privacy and the privacy law, the Privacy Act. So it's really a balance. So what is your suggestion here, Attorney Kat? How do you now, do you think there are already consistent standards out there? And if there are none, can we really truly call this as an improvement or progress? Or is it just a form of selective transparency that still, it depends a lot on the individual's discretion?
Well, Attorney Mike, the standards are already there. Actually, the law on SALN is very clear. If I'm not mistaken, Republic Act number 6713 or the Code
Ethical
of
standards.
the ethical standards for public officials state that SALNs should be made available to the public. Within reasonable hours, they may inspect it. Within reasonable hours, the same may be made available after 10 working days from submission, and that the same should be accessible to the public within 10 years from the time that it was submitted. So it's there. The standards are there. It's very clear. So if we just uphold the letter and the real spirit of the law, there shouldn't be any problem. But let's call a spade a spade. When politics already come into the picture, I think that's where the problem arises.
In what ways has politics made SALNs weaponized or access to SALNs been restricted?
Well, I won't go into the specifics, right? But of course, when a particular agency or a particular person, for example, wouldn't allow access to the SALN, so how can the people check or evaluate whether this government official is really doing his job, right? So to me, anything that could anything that defeats transparency and accountability, that shouldn't be warranted.
Well, I see the value of SALNs because right now a lot of netizens engage in what I almost say by analogy is like investigative journalism. They've been exposing yung mga lifestyles ng mga nepo babies or even some politicians. But then of course, it would help if they have SALNs to compare that against. Because
correct.
it's really the constituents, lalo na kung kababayan mo yung isang politiko, and nakikita mo yung lifestyle, yung mga kotse, yung
Yes.
bahay, then you can look at the SALN and then compare, does it really match with their lifestyle? So right now, with SALNs kept by different types of custodians, you have ombudsman, Congress, and even the Supreme Court having the custody of SALNs that are under, like, within their different jurisdictions, executive, legislative, and judiciary. Do you think this fragmented setup makes access harder and accountability weaker?
I would say that it can, especially when these agencies or offices have varied memorandum or guidelines as to the issuance of SALN or publication of SALN. But to me, if we would all just stick to the letter and to the spirit of the law, then there shouldn't be any problem. Because the law provides that SALN should, SALN is actually a tangible proof or concrete proof of an office integrity or a public official's integrity, right? So, yeah, that's the problem, because people see these public officials, not being modest. So, diba, dun lang nagkakaproblema kasi when your lifestyle and your capacity,
Your income, especially
diba?
if you've
If
only
they
been
don't
in
match.
government, especially for families
Yeah.
na mga dynasties na lahat sa government lang
Yes.
nagtrabaho or nag-serve. So you sometimes wonder, saan nga ba galing yung
Yes.
pera? Which is a
Yeah.
legitimate concern
Yes.
for constituents and
Yeah.
taxpayers.
Correct. That is why, before I follow through to the question that was posed by Atty. Karen, that's why in one of our episodes, we discussed the forfeiture law, civil forfeiture. When in the onus probandi, or the burden of proof, is on the public official to show why he is only earning this much and yet his lifestyle is this much. And he cannot prove it that he has a rich wife or he inherited it. But maganda yung tanong kasi ni Atty. Karen, kaya gusto ko i-follow up yun. In practice, on the ground talaga, do you think that the current custodial setup allows for a fair and equal treatment of all these requests? Dahil nga iba-ibang agencies, or does it invite inconsistencies across the different branches of government?
Yeah, so yes, as I've said, it could invite inconsistencies because of varying or different internal memorandum or circulars.
Or the leadership.
You
might
how they
have
interpret
a leader
it.
who's super supportive of transparency and easily allows
Yes.
the release of SALNs. But then you can also have someone that is really strict and kind of blocks transparency.
Correct. But, the purpose of the law, the spirit of the law is accountability and transparency. The people has to know whether this public official is actually doing his job, right? Is being good stewards of whatever is given to him, especially kung yung position is one that has easy access on government funds. Diba? So that's their way of knowing.
Well, some officials have argued that disclosing their SALNs publicly could expose them to harassment and political attacks. Do you think this is a valid excuse not to make SALNs public?
That is a valid concern, but SALNs, to me, should still be public. Not in the sense that it's out there, right? Walang mga redactions, ganyan. But if being asked or being requested, then, and there is a valid reason for the request, then it should be made available.
Well, I'm
to the
thinking rin
public.
naman, if you're accurate in your declaration in the SALN, then it can't be used for harassment or political attacks kasi wala namang butas na mahanap or ma-expose,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah, kasi it defeats the purpose of of transparency, 'di ba? And accountability. So, kung wala ka naman tinatago, it's so easy to just make it available.
The danger lang talaga, partner, no, when you enter government is a lot of people actually nakilala ko. One of the reasons that they are hesitant, no? They would want to serve, but they're hesitant because yung nga, pag sasabit ng SALN. Dahil pag nagkamali ka sa SALN, sworn statement yan.
Right.
Pwede kang makulong, di ba? And then, of course, you have, under the law, I think you have a couple of days, no, to correct whatever error you have. I think they give you the benefit of the doubt. But at the end of the day, yun nga, medyo sworn statement yan, and any mistake, even if it's not done on purpose, it could give you some legal problems, no? And then Attorney Kat and partner, di ba? And you were part of the Chief Justice Corona. He was one of the top lawyers at that time of defending the Chief Justice, and we've seen public officials removed from office due to issue tied to SALN. We have, of course, the late Chief Justice Corona, then President Estrada, and if I'm not mistaken, of late, former Chief Justice Sereno.
Yes, for her it was co-warranto because she never submitted her SALN. Yes, yeah.
So, just because of SALN, no? There was a co-warranto proceeding because apparently allegedly she did not divulge earnings that she had at perhaps at the UP College of Law,
Or I
was
think
it
she
a
never
private
even
firm?
submitted her
SALN
SALNs,
at all.
kaya she became vulnerable to a co-warranto.
Proceeding. Now, that being the case, so what lessons can be derived from these cases to seriously seriously comply with the provisions required by the law on SALN?
Well, the SALN obligations are not a mere formality. So based on those cases, it appears that it is an integral part of public accountability and the integrity of the office. Okay, so in the cases mentioned, there was actually the affiants failed to state the accurate assets or failed to include some of the accounts, right? So it only shows that regardless of the intent, it is very important to be accurate in the statement of the assets and liabilities. So, yung main lesson that we can learn from that is that we really should take SALNs seriously.
Well, yes, so I agree with that. We should take SALNs seriously. But when it comes to the consequences, do you agree with the case precedent, that the impeachment of former Chief Justice Corona has left in terms of making it an impeachable offense for misdeclarations in your SALN? Does it rise to the level of an impeachable offense where, the other offenses stated there are treason, graft and corruption, betrayal of public trust? Parang kung may misdeclaration ka lang, pero wala naman palang kaakibat na graft and corruption or pagnanakaw, do you think that's a legitimate ground for impeachment? Because later on, even with Chief Justice Corona, yung mga cases niya sa Sandigan Bayan were later dismissed. So I'm not just zeroing in on him, but I'm talking about, as a rule, because I remember that was one of the concerns raised by some of the lawyers and legal luminaries, that we might be setting a dangerous precedent when it comes to saying what the violation of misdeclarations and SALNs really constitute. I agree dapat may consequences, but do you think it should be at the level of an impeachable offense?
Well, I'd like to answer that question by saying that I agree with the penalties imposed by RA 6713.
Which are?
And that
currently?
ranges from fine equivalent to 6 months of salary, or suspension not exceeding 1 year, or of course removal from office, depending on the gravity committed. But to me, that should already be enough. But if there are other crimes or violations that arise from that misdeclaration, then there should be another
the penalties
crime or
that
offense.
go with the penalties that go with the crime that was committed.
Correct.
Right. But would you agree na misdeclaration in SALNs is at the level of other high crimes to make it an impeachable offense?
To me, no, because I also had the opportunity to fill out a SALN, and you know, it's so difficult to remember everything that you have kasi parang ang presumption nun as in
I
up
recall.
to the last cent, and baka
I
yata
recall.
pati sapatos mo you have to put there, diba?
Jewelry,
I think binago
sapatos.
na ba nila yung form? Because the first time I filled
Baka
up a
binago
SALN
na.
was when I was a young professor for UP
Yes,
Law, for
yes.
UP College of Law. And walang nakalagay doon na may dollar. So nakalimutan ko rin actually. Dollar.
marami ka pa naman dollars.
Feeling. Actually, buti na wala rin naman that time. But that's one thing that I hope, I don't know, I haven't seen the recent format.
I haven't
Kung meron
seen the recent,
na nakalagay. But you're right, it can be human mistake. But again, if it rises to the level of malicious omission at saka talagang misdeclaration, then
Ibang
there should
usapan,
be, yeah.
Now we sort of touched already earlier about redacted. So in your opinion, should they redacted or summarize SALNs showing essential figures but omitting a certain personal matter, would this be fair enough?
Yeah, I think that's fair enough because as I've said earlier, the data privacy and right to access to information can actually go hand in hand. But of course, these rights are not absolute. Sabi nga, di ba, sa law school, your right ends when the right of another person begins. So, similarly, ganun din dito. But ang ano lang, to me, ang ano lang dyan is we have to put reasonable regulations, restrictions, limitations. It has to be reasonable.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is under Ombudsman Circular number 3, it can be redacted kasi siyempre we have to also protect the rights of certain individuals or people, the family, like addresses kung hindi naman kailangan, or maybe children that are minors under the age of 18. But there can be exceptions, yan ang sinasabi mo. For example, if it is really required that the redacted information is really the reason that there was such a case. In other words, kailangan malaman, for example, identity. Na kailangan dapat ilabas. Kasi, for example, one person lumalabas na siya pinagkakamalan na may kaso, and ayun pala yung nandun sa redacted information. No? So, what you're saying is, there should be some exceptions and leeway in the OMB Circular number 3.
Yes. Because insofar as the public is concerned, of course, mahirap naman talaga i-out mo lahat ng information mo. But when there is a valid court order from any agency, di ba, may legitimate reason, then it has to be given, the entire thing.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
Without
So
redaction.
I just want to clarify. Are you saying that based on the new rule of Ombudsman Remulla, he said you can make a request that doesn't have to be sworn before a notary public?
Yes.
Are you saying dapat yung pagka nag-request ka, ang i-provide sa'yo ay redacted? Or can you get a copy of the full SALN of an individual, of a public official?
Well, if it's up to me, okay, because the presumption here is that anyone can just ask or request for a copy of the SALN. So the reason should be stated para alam din kung which information do you need. Diba?
Kaya lang you're giving that power of redacting information to whom?
To the custodian.
Which could be like either the ombudsman or someone within the office of the ombudsman or in the Supreme Court.
Yeah. Because most often than not, they just want naman the SALN to check if there is an inconsistency in the
So like
income.
more of the
diba?
total income.
Yeah.
And I suppose like if you have cars there, ano ba yung mga plate number ng kotse? I can't remember. Is that required sa SALN?
I think it could be. It could be required. I can't recall
Kasi
also.
if you're checking also like,
yeah.
oh, I see this politician,
Yeah.
ang dami-dami niyang kotse. So when you get the SALN, you can also check as against the actual cars that are in his name, right?
Correct.
Kaya importante rin siguro yung plate
Double check mo
numbers.
sa LTO, sa Land Transportation
Yeah.
Office, no?
Yeah.
Kung imported, sa Bureau of Customs, di ba?
Yeah. So let's talk about the Data Privacy Act. You've mentioned that as also an important source of rights for those declaring their SALNs, that their privacy needs to be protected as well. But for those who are listening, kasi marami naman ngayon very vigilant magbantay. So kung mag-request sila ng SALN, in what type of forums or materials can they use the information that they get about the SALNs of public officials? Can they, do vlogs and or maraming ganun ngayon nagvo-vlog about itong politician na to, ganyan, or can the media use it to report as well? What constitutes violations of the Data Privacy Act?
Actually, under RA 6713, the SALN cannot be used for commercial purposes except for media and reporting purposes.
So vloggers, are they reporting? Kasi ngayon, nabublur na talaga yung lines, di ba?
Yeah,
For vloggers
journalism
and the
is-
traditional
yes,
media.
exactly.
If you were to ask me, no.
Yeah. Hindi, okay.
Mahirap. Oo. It's very risky. Especially now that, to be honest, we still can't regulate media and social media, di ba, in general. Mahirap.
So baka ang risk for the vloggers would be they might be sued for libel and violations of the Data Privacy Act.
That's
Liable pag may imputation of a
yeah.
crime or
Or a defect.
or a vice or defect.
Yeah.
Oo.
Well, depending on the content. Because if they're suggesting that there is a crime committed or, social media is really not the proper forum for that. Diba? Because if you think that a crime is being committed based on the SALN, then you file a case, diba? Not social media.
Okay. Now, Attorney Kat, if Congress were to require proactive publication, in your view, what kind of system could ensure accuracy, fairness, and context without turning it into a disclosure, into a political weapon?
I think there should really be a centralized agency or a custodian for all SALNs. And as I've mentioned earlier, I am for the publication of SALN, provided that the sensitive personal information are redacted. But of course, without prejudice to court order or for other legitimate reasons.
And I think, partner, talaga, these SALNs, diba, Attorney Kat, in your view, no, they should really be preserved.
Yes.
And in fact, I think there should be an effort really to digitize, no? Diba,
Yeah.
digitalization
Yes,
kailangan
yes.
Because if I recall correctly, a prescriptive period for the filing of cases on certain, it's about mga 20 years,
Yeah.
diba, on the SALN. Kaya siguro talaga dapat i-preserve yan. And I do hope that the different agencies, partner, especially the Office of the Ombudsman, and in the case of Congress, kasi sa mga legislators, it's Congress, sa House, tapos sa Senate, di ba? In the Supreme Court, it's the Clerk of Court, di ba? So, dapat talaga there should be a strong effort to do so. In your view ba, mayroon bang steps ngayon na ginagawa ang Ombudsman and the other government agencies to actually really preserve and perhaps digitize the SALNs?
Well, I'd like to believe that they are preserving the SALNs because under RA 6713, it has to be made available to the public for 10 years from filing. Diba? I'm just not sure if they go beyond that. But as to digitization, I'm not sure about that, but I agree that we should really maximize and utilize technology.
Okay, very interesting discussion. But
Indeed.
for now, we'll have to pause for a quick break. But our conversation with Attorney Katrin Jessica Distor-Guinigundo continues as we look at how transparency and privacy can coexist in public service. This is Abogado.
Welcome back. You're still on Abogado. Still with us is attorney Katrin Jessica Distor-Guinigundo as we continue our discussion on whether public officials should be mandated to publish their SALNs proactively, not just when requested.
Now, Attorney Kat, before we close, we still have some points that we want to discuss with you. So the SALNs right now, it also requires the disclosure of your relatives who
Yes.
are in government, public service. Do you see a problem with that in terms of when we talk about harassment? So having that information also out there of who you're related to and who else is in government, do you think that's something that's contentious in terms of being included in the SALN? Or tamang-tama lang yun for transparency rin?
Well, if we're talking about transparency and accountability, then that's a very legitimate and a valid information to be in the SALN, diba? And because there are places wherein from governor up to a barangay captain yata.
Puro relative.
Puro
May
relative
tawag
sila.
na sila dyan parang family, ginawa ng family corporation, or family
Yes.
business.
Business.
Family
Oo.
business,
Yeah.
yes. So, that's also a safeguard. Yung SALN na yun is a safeguard, diba? To check their business there. Kung wala naman, walang problema.
You know, Attorney Kat, what do you think of this? Kasi if one looks at RA 6713, ethical standards, no, actually, it is much stricter than the OMB Circular Number 3. Una-una, it not only requires you na mag-submit ka na SALN mo, but you have to disclose your financial interests, di ba?
Yes.
Mga what you call this, connections, et cetera, no? If you have any beneficiaries and all that, no? So, it is even more strict. Kaya nga siguro, won't you agree na if, let's say, sinundan lang talaga natin ang Code of Ethical Standards as provided for in RA 6713, then siguro lahat ng itong nakikita natin problema, no? From the infragate or the flood control scandal, even the ones with Napoles and all that, don't you think that had we followed lang RA 6713 strictly, na maiiwasan to lahat?
Yes. Kasi kaya nga very straightforward naman yung RA 6713 di ba?
Yes.
It's very straightforward. You just have to disclose all your assets, liabilities, and net worth, even business interests,
And
di ba?
connections,
Connections.
But I do not agree na maiiwasan yung condition natin because to me, the system we had allowed for corruption, meaning, you know, the ability for legislators to put in the budget projects that are for their own interest in a sense that because they had that power, then nakakausap nila iba na, I will put it in the budget, pero ikaw mag-implement, may kickback, and then ipapabid natin sa ganitong contractor. So hati-hatian sila. So I would think that the SALN component is only one piece of the puzzle that allows us to check on them. But if they're misdeclaring and hiding their assets, then I think we need to strengthen yung bank secrecy law and also our anti-money laundering laws. Kanina lumabas sa news, sa bilyonaryo na si Yusek Bernardo daw was not using the banking system anymore nung nagkaroon na, nung at the height of the exposure of the flood control, nung lumalabas na yung flood control controversy. So parang I think that's also, you know, a gap that needs to be filled in our laws kasi kahit na very clear in SALN what you should put there and you have officials filing their SALNs, if they're not declaring properly and natatago nila yung hidden ill-gotten wealth nila, then it's gonna be, you know, a problem in terms of cleaning up government.
Good point, partner.
Yeah. Actually, totoo yun, no? Kasi kung gusto mo naman talagang itago, matatago mo, di ba? Sabi nila, kung gusto, may paraan. So, there are a lot of ways, really, to hide whatever it is that you want to hide. No? And SALN is just one of the tools provided to us by the law. Di ba? So, it really all boils down to enforcement. Di ba? Yung mga mechanisms, strict mechanisms na yan. So, simulan muna natin sa SALN. We can't have a unified stand on the disclosure of SALN. Diba?
Yeah. Well, right now, we've already had members of Congress, a lot of them more from party lists,
Yes.
that have made their SALNs public. Sila Chel Diokno,
Yes.
I think former DOJ Secretary, now Congresswoman Laila de Lima has also made her SALN public, and some senators as well, including Senator Ping Lacson. So, with this trend right now, are you optimistic na na-rebuild na ang trust sa
this kind of
government or
transparency.
yeah.
Well, we commend them for doing that. But to me, confidence can only be rebuilt, or trust can only be rebuilt if there is if there is enforcement, like accountability, diba? Meron talagang, and we have to use kasi this information to see, to scrutinize, ano ba talaga ginagawa ng mga public officials natin, may ginagawa ba silang hindi maganda, diba? So, and the only time na babalik yung tiwala ng tao is if they see na nagamit itong information na to sa tamang paraan at napanagot yung mga dapat managot.
Well, partner, what are your final thoughts on this issue?
Well, I think the announcement of Ombudsman Boying Remulla is very
It's a good
recent
sign, no?
that
Yeah.
he's going to make SALNs more accessible. So with that, I'm very curious to see how this would affect the transparency of government, and then the ability of the public, the constituents, the taxpayers to ask for, or not ask for, demand accountability.
Correct. You know, this is a good move, no doubt. We commend Ombudsman Boying Remulla for doing this under that new circular. It really goes to show that there's truth in their move to make it more transparent. Pero I think we all agree, as lawyers, as practitioners, na alam mo, kulang pa rin ito. Itong pagpa-file ng SALN, itong pag-disclose ng SALN ng ombudsman, or whenever it is required by a citizen, if it is not also concurrent to, let's say, changing the ethical approach, changing the character of people, changing the mindset, diba? You need more than just this. But definitely, it's a good start.
Good
start,
yeah.
yes.
And I think lastly, because we're living in a digital age, the request could be made online dapat. Kasi
Yes.
with the traffic
Yeah,
na ngayon, or even if you're from the province, do you really expect someone to go all the way to Metro
Totoo.
Manila to do the request in person? Matrabaho, magastos.
Right.
So I think they should make it available online. Like
Online.
magkaroon ng online portal.
Yeah.
Alam mo, partners, sa Indonesia, sa South Korea, automatic, they publish it online. Automatic siya.
So meron pala tayong model for
may
doing
model. There is a
online
model.
publication.
And this is actually global standards in compliance with the United Nations corruption organization, the anti-corruption organization of the UN. So maybe we're getting there. Maybe we're taking a few steps, but we're getting there. Pero yun nga, it took a huge scandal like this. But it's good because it woke all of us up from our stupor.
Yeah.
Diba? Laban na, di ba?
Yeah. Di ba? Next time, ikaw na tatakbo, Attorney Mike. So,
Party
pengen ng
list.
SALN.
Sorry,
Yeah.
party.
Abogado party list. Okay, thank you again so much, Attorney
Thank you so
Katrin
much.
Distor-Guinigundo. Thank you for joining us tonight and sharing your insights on this evolving issue.
As you can see, and I'm sure you've heard, tonight's discussion reminds us that the SALN is more than a form. It's a mirror of accountability and a test of public trust.
As the debate on proactive disclosure continues, one thing remains clear. Transparency must strengthen governance, not weaken it. This is Abogado. Good night.